Welcome to Disability Empowerment Now, Season 4. I'm your host, Keith Murphy DiCincini. Today I'm talking to my friend Sara Bradford, aka J. Childs, the podcast host of the J. Childs Show. So, welcome to the show.
Oh, Keith, thank you so much for having me, for being patient and graceful with me as we've danced through our schedule to get here.
I do that with a lot of my guests. So I've become very accustomed to playing the tightrope walk
Isn't
of
that the truth?
yeah, because when you're in different time zones or when you're on different sides of the world, you have to be. I have like every time zone queued up on my phone. Just
Perfect.
going down.
Where are you at?
I'm in Arizona, but I'm also based in New York City.
Okay.
So I'm bi-coastal. And so we found each other on LinkedIn. I don't know who added who first, but we got to talking. I probably added you because I'm this season I've been trying to do a lot of cross promo uh or promotion with other podcasts and video casts. Uh and so LinkedIn is my happy place,
I love
uh,
that.
or one of them. And so, and I think your profile came up based on recommendations on my profile, and that's how uh, we got connected. I thought you ran a morning TV show, and so I was going to shamelessly try to get on your morning TV broadcast show to promote my own because I'm very shameless. That's so that's how we got
Oh, love it.
connected.
Well, it's just an audio. Well, I have both. I have audio and video podcasts. I have a YouTube channel. But yeah, it's unfortunately not a morning show broadcast, but it's still I like to still say that I'm a talk show host because
The
it's
background really drew me, and the talk show host part drew me, and I was like, I had to meet her. I had to
Oh,
get on her television show.
well, how about you just come on the podcast
Oh,
instead?
yeah, sure, sure.
I
Yeah,
love that.
but
Oh,
no,
funny.
it is a talk show. Like
Yeah.
when I started doing video casts uh last season, uh near the beginning, but I still did the podcast because those are obscenely accessible. Uh, and now I call it a show or a program
Yeah.
because it's both, and very soon it will become its own non-profit, not to brag, but I lied. I'm totally bragging about that. Uh, because it keeps evolving, and we're going to do merchandise because why not?
I agree.
Uh,
Yeah.
and thank you. Everyone seems to push me towards merchandise, and I'm like, okay, I'm gonna listen to everyone around me.
There you go.
And so tell me about your show and how you chose the moniker as J Child.
Yeah, I'd love to. Well, the show was born out of me writing children's books about special needs for kids. And my family is autistic, ADHD, and a couple dyslexic. And that was important for me to help children, especially their age at the time, preschool and elementary age, to help better understand how to be their friends and how to accept them, for them to see their special qualities about them were positive attributes about themselves so that they could be proud of themselves for those things, and to really help children just identify inclusion in general so that it can be more um, widely taught in that age group, I think, where it all begins. So hopefully we
Yeah,
start at the beginning and start them on a good foot, and that way. But SJ Childs, my name is Sarah Jean. So SJ was Sarah Jean. And then Childs was kind of a play on words to be in the children's book genre. I just figured SJ Childs, then I would be relatable to children's books and in kind of that way. So
yeah.
it was kind of just a play on words. There's my, autistic brain coming through and finding all of the interesting ways I can put a spin. And so then I decided, while I was going on to other shows promoting these children's books, people were saying the same thing, like, you need to do a podcast. And so I started the SG Child Show. I am in season 12, and we're 293 episodes in.
Wow, I would offer to buy you a drink in celebration because that's incredible. Uh,
You.
Season 12. Uh,
Yeah. And
dare I ask, how long ago was season 1? Do I
3 years.
even want
Yeah.
to know?
3 years ago. So yeah, in 3 years I've done almost 300 interviews.
Okay, so we're going to spend the rest of the episode talking about how you did that, how you sleep at night,
I know, right? And raise
if
the
you
family.
ever sleep, how do you have family?
Yeah.
Are you just in the studio recording?
I know,
Do your
right?
children pry you out of your studio
Oh,
chair?
funny.
I mean, all this is ridiculous. My mind is
So cute. You
blown.
know, I think that at the beginning it was excitement, and I was realizing, we were coming we were out of the pandemic, so it was mid-pandemic, and I'm already a stay-at-home mom with my son who is profoundly autistic. And so it was getting to the point where, when we realized I could go onto podcasts, I was recognizing, oh my gosh, I'm adulting in this whole new way that I haven't done in so long. And not only that, but it kind of gave me like my own Sarah power back, my Sarah-ness. And I think that for a while I'd slumped into the mom at home, like ponytails every day. Not that I don't do that a lot, but getting onto podcasts kind of forced me into this, like, well, you need to like do your hair and
Yeah,
have something nice to wear, and like, do makeup. I don't often, but at the beginning I did. And so now I'm fine with my natural fine. But everything, it took time, but now it really like it brought out like a real good sense of myself, and it helped me to kind of rediscover who I was as a human, as a person, and not just as a mom, not just as a writer or anything. Now I was this interviewer who I could pick the brains of all the people I wanted to have on the show. And, I would say that I set my schedule where I was doing maybe 3 days a week. I would do 4 to 6 interviews of those 3 days. So I really was working a lot, a lot. And my husband would help. He would do a lot of the editing and video editing and stuff for me at the time.
Sorry, has he won the Husband of the Year award yet? Uh,
Every year for 20 years he has.
wow, I have to meet him and become a student of his because
Exactly. He's a
damn,
wise
that's
man, Keith, I'll tell you that.
impressive.
Yeah, he's the most we're best friends, and he's the most supportive, wonderful husband, and we just really got lucky with one another, and lucky that we can raise this interesting family together, and even cooler that I can talk about it, and so it wraps it all into one big
So,
wonderful thing.
how 3 days out of the week, each of those 3 days, you were doing 4 to 6. I mean, I've done 3 episodes a day twice in my career, and both of those days I was wiped.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
your schedule, and I'm not gonna pick it apart, I'm just in awe of how do you have or how do you maintain that level of intellectual
Oh,
stamina?
yeah, thank you. I mean, I appreciate you saying that, because I think that that's one of the things that really like brought me and my husband together, was our being able to have these intellectual conversations. And even here we are 20 years later, and we can still sit and have conversations about things we've never really talked about before. And that's something that I think you have to have, probably ADHD, which we both have. So our minds are never ending conversations, and we never want to stop talking. I think that's what it is really comes down to. Not only that,
That
but
should be, sorry to
no, I
interrupt,
love it.
that should be the title of your memoir. Never ending conversation.
I love that because it's really true. In fact, I just did a session which is going to be coming up for the US Autism Association World Autism Conference. And my session is about lasting love and connecting my late autism diagnosis to communication skills in my marriage. And it's a really fascinating to be able to share on that level, because it's
Yeah,
not something, that you usually my when I go onto my podcast, it's a lot of parenting, a lot of education. And so there's not as much adults like marital conversations or things that I get to have and get to talk exciting and have all those things. So yeah, it's fun to be able to like spread the conversations in so many directions, and talk about so many different things. And I've learned so much. Like, I learned something from every single person I talk to and that I interview, or that I'm interviewed by.
yeah,
I learned so much from just each conversation. And I think that also comes with the desire to want to
yeah,
in
yeah.
intent.
If I didn't have my curiosity about other people, I would not do this show. I couldn't do it without the
Yeah.
curiosity.
I love it. I love that you have that. So yeah, after I just decided to, start bringing the awareness, and then just like you, so many things started happening. I thought, okay, well, now maybe I should go out to my community. And so I went and did like trainings for after school programs on inclusion. And, I went and trained my local police department in autism training, and like kind of, understanding how who an individual is and how they're acting and things like that. Then it's been so great. I also started a nonprofit last year for it's called the SJ Child's Global Network. My desire for that, it's still in its, baby phases,
Yeah,
infant stages,
yeah.
but my desire for that is to just help bring people together and resources. And I think that you probably over this last, while that we've been connecting, remember that I did that an autism event in a conference, a 4-day conference that I held, called the 1 in 36 Mix 2 Autism Summit, and the International Autism Summit I did in April. So I'm really just doing a lot of educating, and yeah, I love it because my family, you know, to me, it seems like when we go out in the world, we have a really hard time like fitting in and being, but for us being together, we all fit together so perfectly. And so it's just so interesting. And then finally through some of these, community expeditions and things, you start finding people that relate, and you can be yourself with, and you can show up, not show up 3 times to a podcast on accident because of family trauma, you know, and things like that. But oh, you never gave up on me. Thanks. Because
Yeah,
really at
no.
heart, like I love to do this. I love this.
Yeah, I regularly interview people in the UK, people in Ireland, and so I'm very, very used to uh, doing that uh, schedule jump of plugging people in.
Yeah.
And so Benford, the way I know that name is the comedian. Any relation?
I wouldn't know. Possibly, it's my husband's name, so
Oh, oh, yeah, okay. Well,
that's okay. Yeah, I don't know. There are a lot of them though, that is for sure. It's a
yeah,
big family name. My family, my maiden name is Gullihur. So it's much smaller. It's much more Irish and maybe a little bit, somewhere in that region. Red hair, can you guess, right?
yeah, yeah. No, how did you and your husband meet 20 some odd years ago?
Yeah. I was going to massage college at the time. I'm also a licensed massage therapist. Keith, I've been many
What
things.
what don't you do?
I've been a paralegal. I've worked in real estate. Yeah, I've done so many things. I think I'm a serial entrepreneur, a mompreneur, right? That's what I
Yeah,
am. Oh my gosh. I was going to massage college, and I had a friend that, and her and I would pick her up for school every day. And while I was waiting for her to get ready, I would sit at the coffee table and have coffee with this guy. And we had coffee together every day for months and months and months, and talked to each other every single day. And at the end of the when we graduated, she ended up moving and they broke up, but he and I remained friends. And we kept talking. And then our friendship moved into a different kind of vibe. And so we decided, you're going to love this. We decided to flip a quarter whether we should go on a date or not. And heads we date, and tails we didn't. And so On September 13th, 2004, we flipped a quarter and heads we date, and here we are.
Why a quarter?
I don't know. We just like to flip a quarter. We
Wow.
decided let's because he was a gambler, maybe.
Wow, okay. There you go again, throwing your man under the bus. So, very good job.
I love it. I love it.
But no, I mean, that's a beautiful
Hmm,
story.
really is.
Not for the other girl, but
Yeah, I
I
mean, and she
mean,
didn't care because she had left, and so
oh,
yeah, it
okay.
was like she moved away, and
All things that end well.
exactly, right?
Yeah.
And I mean, we dated for 5 years before we got married. And then
My parents dated for 8. Not to brag for them, but you want to talk about a very long engagement. There it
yes,
is. I
long.
mean,
Yeah.
yeah, it's like,
Yeah, definitely. And then I was pregnant with our first, and I was 5 months pregnant when we got married. And so I mean, we didn't do it for that, but at the same time we did, and we knew that we wanted to be together and have this family. And then he already had a daughter, so I was a pre-made mom already, and I raised my stepdaughter. So it was, yeah, it was in a good fit, and we really just have come so far. I can't believe it.
so
And now,
what?
yeah, we have two of our own, and I have stepdaughter too. So we have three, but she is 24 and on her own and has her own babies. Now we're actually grandparents, but
Thanks. So what did he do?
he does remodeling and construction, and yeah, he's self-employed. So
Oh,
yeah.
nice,
Which is
nice.
nice because he's available to make his own schedule.
Yeah.
And, because things are unusual at our home as far as school and
Oh, I'm getting
therapy.
that picture very, very clear.
Yeah. So, yeah. In fact, one of our kiddos, DJ, he is sleeps what I like to call the moon cycle, which is 2 weeks in the day and 2 weeks in the night. And I had to learn how to really follow him in his own time and body cycles and everything, because medicating him and doing all of those things, like, yeah, I gave it a try, but it was not it I didn't like it. He didn't like it. Like, it wasn't healthy. I don't believe it was healthy for him. So I really wanted to just follow his, cycle of what he needed to go by. And, it was kind of funny. Years into it, I realized, wait a second. My husband's been taking these same sleep nap cycles my whole entire relationship with him. And it gave me some better perspective as to how this sleep cycle was working. And he's able to manage it as an adult with a job, with, taking care of a family. So I know my son will be able to too. And I know that's something that parents really freak out about when their kids are little. They want them to, like, have this exact things happening, but really, people just kind of figure things out, especially for themselves when they become independent.
So, how did it feel to be married for 20 years? And what would you say is the key or qualities of a long lasting relationship? That's personal, but I would
I
be
love
remiss if I
Mhm.
didn't
Yeah.
ask.
No, I love to answer
For
that.
the decades, the full decades long marriage, and then you have 5 years before that, and then you have the friendship before that, and so you're looking at close to 30 years.
It's really
And
20,
so,
and we've been married for 15. So the 20 is like, yeah, but
so really,
still a
it's
long time.
like you have to know something. I'm so invested in learning all the secrets
Mm,
of a successful, long-lasting relationship.
I agree. I
As you
mean,
can tell by the exasperated tone of my voice,
you're
the
excited about it.
excitability.
I love it.
Please share all your knowledge with
Okay.
me, Sarah.
Funny. I would say, well, I can tell you exactly what it is. And I can tell you that I also have started writing a book about it, which is exactly what you wanted me to do in the first place. So,
Yes,
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 because I
exact.
want to share, like, we went through a time. This is so vulnerable, what I'm about to share. We both went through a time. So he grew up mostly in detention centers and in group homes and came just from a very broken family. And I was a divorced only child of divorced parents who moved to different states and had their own careers. And I was a latchkey kid who was on her own all the time. So
Wow.
we when we came together, we had already kind of lived our lives so independently, and we both had experienced, I think we were both more on like the rougher side of life, I'm gonna say, at that point in our lives, in our early
Yeah.
20s and maybe later mid 20s. And there was a lot of dishonesty that had been a regular part of who we were and how we acted in our lives at that time. And there was a time frame where something happened, and we decided, he made an ultimatum that if the relationship was going to go anywhere, things were going to need to change, and there was going to
Yeah.
be need to be complete honesty there forward.
Yeah.
So not knowing really how to change a habit that had been so like long lived, I would say, I
Yeah.
decided to go to an NA meeting. And I sat at the NA meeting, and I was embarrassed, and other people kind of scoffed at me because they were like, they thought their addiction and their problem was way bigger and way more important than what I was there for. At the same time, I knew that what I was there for was just as big within me, and it gave me that same like empty feeling, and I knew that like I needed to change. And so throughout, I went through the whole process, and you know, came out the other end realizing what was really any causing any problems ever in my life at any point was honesty. And that was literally the key. And we both decided to never look back from that moment. And he had seen how much work I had put in. And so he started kind of within his own mind questioning, well, like, how many white lies do I tell? Like, when do I make excuses that aren't true? And he started counting for himself in his own habits and watching those things. And that was like in year one, liter of dating. So that was literally year one, 1.5 or something like that. And so from then on, it's so interesting because I have to tell you this. In this session that I just barely did, when I was going over all the paragraphs for a couple of them, I revised them with AI. And the AI said something that was just like really fascinating when I looked back and read it. And it said, throughout my journey, there's many relationships that had to fall to the wayside because honesty wasn't within them. That wasn't something that was bred within them, and relationships fell away. And I thought that that was really interesting that it picked up on that piece of things. But
Yeah, that's the whole point of the 90 anthem Bop by Hansen. Only one, you'll have many relationships in your life, many friendships, but only one or two of them will last.
Yeah.
And that's the whole point of that song. So, yeah.
Yeah. And then we just, kind of went
Please
forward
tell
on
me
that.
you know that song.
Oh, of course, of course.
Okay, good, good. Like,
No, of course. Yes,
wow, okay,
yes.
good.
Good genre. I think we're probably, I don't know, how old are you? In your 30s?
Yeah, let's go with that. I'm about to hit a big birthday when it's recorded, but when it
Really?
comes out, it will be way past
I'm
it.
excited.
Uh, I'm uh, I'm of that era, and
What?
yeah. So
Oh, goodness.
continue.
Well, yeah. And so, I mean, I really think that, I think another thing is that we really, like you said, from the beginning, we still have good conversations. We are very intellectual people. And for me, I've definitely kind of found an outlet where I have more resources, if you will, as far as like he does a lot of listening to other brilliant people, and I like to talk to them and interact with them and be a part of everything. But we are, if you were to know us like today, you would know that we're opposites as opposite could be. I'm the, bright, cheery, like outgoing one, and he's quiet and
Yeah,
speaks up only when it's like necessary, and then people really listen because he's quiet and
yeah.
astute and everything. And so it's just, we make a really wonderful pair. And I think, well, I know that he grew up with a sister with Down syndrome, and so for him, like, having an already kind of special heart, if you will, and special understanding of dignity and how to treat people with kindness, that really gave like a shape for us to be really attentive parents when we found out our kids needed supports that we didn't understand. um yeah, so I think that it's been a never ending support system for each other. He supports me, and he bought all this stuff and helps me set it up, and just is so supportive. Like, I get up and make him coffee every morning and make sure that he gets to work, with the things he needs. And I think that just like really loving each other, really like wanting to see each other every day. I tell people that too. Like, he's the one person that I want to spend time with every single day. And I think that probably is hard for people to understand or believe or even imagine what that might be like. But yeah, and maybe it was all of those years of being on my own as a kid and wishing that I just had someone next to me. So I finally manifested the forever next to me.
That's beautiful. So that really is. So let's get into your life diagnosis and what that means
Yeah.
for you, and did that change the trajectory of your life in any way? Uh, and when did you suspect you had it? And then when did you actually get diagnosed?
Yeah.
And how did you feel when you actually had the official diagnosis of, oh, I'm autistic. So many things make sense now on something like that.
Yeah, 100%. So, well, I guess it's best to start off with really when I was a child and had no idea. So let's see what that looked like. I have a outer ear microtia, which means I have these little tiny ears right here. And I hear kind of, well, I hear 1 second longer out of both ears than typical people, and frequencies and things. And so I'm already supernatural is what I, thought when I was little. Okay. And I'm just joking. But I also had super, super high sound sensitivity when I was little. And I don't mind. I'm 48. So in the 70s, when they had garbage trucks that would come around without those brakes on them, those air brakes that they have today, the squealing and like the grinding and the things would literally hurt my body. And everyone thought I was just dramatic and thought I was overreacting. And I would cry with pillows over my head and just, it would like hurt my body. So later on, it, started manifesting in like maybe, I don't know, my brain just told me this, maybe migraines later, it started affecting me in different ways. And, so those kinds of things happened and they were never talked about or understood or explained. Friendships, and I was always really like really smart reader and memorization when I was little, like 3. I could memorize things and repeat, give people lists back of things. And so I just had this really high gifted level of thinking that I remember being tested for, gifted stuff when I was like in elementary school. But my parents were always like, no, 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 no. We're not doing that. We're not doing that. You're just this normal kid. Just stop being so extra, basically. So just get back into your place, right? We don't want to see anything out of its place. So that's kind of where yeah, unfortunately it was stifled. I mean, sometimes I
Well,
wonder
this
how
was
fascinating.
the 70s, and so, I mean, you have to contextualize it
A hundred
in
percent.
time, but still, that made me cringe.
I know.
Stop being so extra.
Yes.
Really,
Yes.
sound sensitivity is so extra.
I love it, Keith. I love it. No, it really, and yeah. So today, understanding those things, I can really be like, okay, all of the, drama queen keychains or things that they bought me to emphasize my drama and my flair for the dramatics, right? But really, I always said that I always felt like a unicorn in a horse pasture. That I was always like,
Beautiful
spreading glitter on people.
analogy. Beautiful analogy.
And it was just never the same as everyone else. And my relationships, it was hard to, I don't think I would have noticed my relationships were hard with other people had maybe some of the more judgmental people in my life not saying things like, why can't you be like this person? Why can't you be like these groups of people? Like, why can't you fit in with these people? And I think that's something to really like recognize, to not say those things to your kids, and to let them hear those kind of conversations. Because really, when you think about, I heard this on a podcast the other day with this amazing doctor, and she said belonging is about having, peace with one another, like really being there and being in. Fitting in is having to mask to be there, to be fit in. You're not belonging. You're just fitting. You're sitting there fitting in. And I was just like, yes. Like it was, oh, that's how it was always for me. I was always just fitting in. I was just having to be like everyone else around me, as you probably hear from so many other autistics, and people. So I think that that's hard. And I never was wanting to be. I was always the entrepreneur spirit that wanted to be different and adventurous and free and do all of these other things. So I would say when I decided to look into a diagnosis after my own beautiful, brilliant daughter was diagnosed. And I recognized how this incredible little human who was speaking in basically full sentences, now that I know is the Gestalt learning, just, processing system there, was so much like me. And she was so vivacious, and she had just this like amazing little adult syndrome. So like it really, like this old soul that always was just like so much more
Yeah.
than she than she could be at her age. And so my son was diagnosed at 16 months, so very early on, very recognizable. My husband was I my husband and I understood that he had Asperger's in when he was 38. So about maybe 8 years ago, I think, or so. About, is that right? And that was when our son was 8. And I started recognizing, like I said, a lot of the same patterns of eating and sleeping and just some other, similarities that I was like, wait, husband, you're on the spectrum. And he was like, okay, these things, that makes sense. This lines up. And he had an ADHD diagnosis from childhood.
Yeah.
So it kind of, that made sense for him. My childhood diagnoses were depression, bipolar, you know, things that were whatever they could stick a label on it, I suppose,
Oh,
and
yeah.
give you
I'm
for.
totally getting those vibes
I know, can't
from
you tell?
those vibes.
Oh, funny. But
One
yeah.
one meeting, and I've already psychoanalyzed you in my head, listening to the your childhood in the 70s and the whole drama queen. Oh,
Yeah.
God.
You know,
Uh,
we hope we change things for the better in the future. And that's why when I realized, when my daughter got her diagnosis, and it was from the school psychologist, and he came out to get her a dyslexia diagnosis. And in the meeting, we talked about our other family members. And then at the end, he said, autism, ADHD, dyslexia. And we went, okay, wow, that's really cool. And we like congratulated her and said, this is amazing. Like we're gonna this that now we understand you so much more, and we can just pile all of this great, stuff or whatever. And then it took a few months, and then I thought, well, my husband kind of teased me because I would tell him, well, where do I belong? Like, I'm part of it all. Like, where am I supposed to fit in here? Right? I'm still the outsider. I'm still the typical family member with all the atypical family members. And so at the time, I just was still like, like I just like they're my family, and of course I belong and they belong to me and everything. But and I was doing a podcast, and a woman had told me she had gotten her ADHD um diagnosis from a brain scan center downtown here in Salt Lake City. And so I researched it, and I went, and if you've ever heard of Dr. Ammon, who is
yes,
he
yes.
does like all of the brain scan, research and things. And so I went down to this center, and they just so happened to have like a special on their website. So I got a brain scan for half off.
Yeah,
And
pardon me. Pardon me. I have to pause. I'll be right back.
yeah, yeah.
And we're back. So you were talking about getting a brain scan at the Amen clinics.
Well, I had learned from him, but no, not at his clinic. So just
Oh,
to, yeah, not that that really matters. But anyways, yeah, I went just to it was just a clinic that was doing them down in Salt Lake. So I thought, okay, I'll go do it and I'll see, what it says and what it does. And it was really interesting. They did like a full brain scan and like I don't know, psychoanalyzing, I guess, session. And then they did a reflex session, which took like 2 hours. And they tested every reflex in of every part, like my fingers, my joints, my nose, my neck, my eyes, just every part of my body. It was so fascinating. And I guess
okay.
through all of that testing, they can qualify as to like some of the things that your body is like misaligned with in these reflexes. But in the brain scan, they actually, map it with thousands of other brains, and then you can see what parts of your brain are different. So mine came back and showed that it had autism and ADHD and depression and anxiety and a little bit of OCD, which I really wouldn't have never understood about myself until I could understand it, right? And so, yeah, it was just fascinating. And I left there kind of like, oh my gosh. And I thought going into it, I thought, okay, as soon as if I do find out that I'm autistic, then I'm going to just do it live and I'm going to share it with everyone. I'm so excited, blah, blah, blah. But it was not the case. That's not how it went. I really like it, it settled with me for maybe 4 months or something before I said something to anyone. Like my mom, my close family, they and everyone knew, but I didn't come, outwardly talk about it until I could really like wrap my mind around all of it and understand, especially the ADHD, because I hadn't recognized. And see, in a brain scan, it has the ability to show you and tell you the basically what it showed me was percentages. So your brain is affected by ADHD 100%. My brain's affected by autism 25%. So that tells me that it would be in the higher Asperger's range, which
Yeah.
is understandable in that way. Um, and I had no idea that I had ADHD, like no idea. So that to me was like this whole new, oh my gosh, I have to understand and figure out what all of this means now to me. And so it really took a long time of me self self absorbing and really like reflecting on what all of that meant. And it was kind of sweet because the place that I had been, the when I had I was have you heard of the Global Autism Project by any chance?
Yes.
I was at one of the round tables and I had said at the time, I think I might be autistic and I'm going to go get tested. And I was a little nervous, like, oh my gosh, how are they going to respond to me? I hope nobody is like angry or, anything because I don't know and I'm looking for this. Like, why would you do that kind of thing? But everybody was so supportive and so kind and sweet. And it was on another round table with them that I actually was like, I have big news for you guys. I'm so excited. And here I am back on your round table, and I get to tell everyone that all of my friends that I was there when I thought I might be going to do this and that it's true. And I feel like so much like I belong. Now I feel like it really like when and what happened with our family, I didn't even think that we could be closer, but it really like cemented our understanding for one another, our emotional support of one another, and how if we could look at ourselves and look at our own traits and habits and things, how much better parents we could be to give our kids what we never had and what we really needed when we were that age.
Yeah.
Whatever age they're 14 and 12 now. So they're going through some pretty serious ages where they need
Yeah,
love.
those
Yeah.
aren't easy ages, and I
Yeah.
would love to say it just gets better from here. But that would be, no, that wouldn't be, that totally is a lie.
It's
It,
yeah, it's tricky. Yeah.
Nothing is easier about those ages or the ages that come after
Exactly.
those ages. I mean, we both know that I wasn't born in the 70s. I came in the 80s. Uh, but yeah, it's like, where were we with before the internet, before MP3s, before CDs? Remember libraries and card
I
catalogs?
sure
And
do.
I mean,
I was
it's,
really fast at those.
oh, that's totally a shock to me. No, it's not at
Love
all.
that. That's funny. Now, math, don't put me in a math class. No, no, no. I didn't like
Yeah,
that stuff, but I loved words and
no,
letters and
math
word
is
not
my
numbers.
kryptonite. Ironically, my grandma was my mother's math teacher, and
Oh,
people keep telling me I'm better at math than I give myself credit for. And I'm like, math and I aren't on speaking terms. We have a love-hate relationship. Uh, and I'm okay with that. Thank you. Next question, please. But
oh, funny.
so I have so many more questions uh for you. I would love to come on your show and for to have you come back
Yeah, let's do a
on
part two and have a
mine.
part one on mine. Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah, yeah. Three questions before I end, and
Yeah,
I usually should say two more questions, but the first one is the family dynamic that you guys have. It's so interesting. I won't say unusual. It's interesting.
yeah,
You just hit on it a second ago, how you didn't think you could be closer to your family.
yeah,
Talk a little about that
yeah. I would,
closeness and having that synergy, that pack leadership
yeah,
of you all have a degree of autism or
yeah,
Asperger's, ADHD, and the like.
yeah.
What is that family dynamic? Like, what is it like to live in that family synergy?
Mhm.
Because not hardly any family had that synergy baked into it. And
Mhm.
so talk about that.
Okay. Yeah, I think that I always wanted to be a mom. I knew that I mean, I did preschool teaching like that was my first job was working at like a daycare or preschool. So I love kids and I always have. And that was something that he knew right away when we were getting to know each other that I would be a good mom to his daughter because he already had a
Good.
daughter, right?
Good.
Yeah. And so that was already something that it would, like I had said, I was already a pre-made mom. Like I was ready to go. She was already there. It was like, all right, let's do this, strap our boots on. And relationships, and I think it's so important for everyone to understand that every relationship with every individual is different because every individual is different. And our relationship with her took a lot of strain and a lot of a degree of trauma because we were co-parenting with someone that wasn't mentally fit. And that made things very difficult for all circle of the whole thing. When it came down to having our own kids, when that point came and we got DJ's diagnosis early on, when, before he was 2, that we recognized how our parenting skills needed to change because with our oldest, we had projected our own parents' parenting, which is the only skills we had, right, onto her. And so it was a lot more consequence based, principle based parenting, but it had its own consequences in later in life, real understandably. So with him, we recognized right away, well, he can't communicate. So we can't have these expectations. We can't tell him to just do something and it's going to happen. Like we have to be these little role models constantly and how to ask for water or how to, you know, say I need to go to the bathroom. There's just so many steps of being a little person that you take for granted, I suppose, when your child can talk and can communicate with you. And when you don't have access to those things with your child, it makes it a whole lot different. And you, like, I love the word you said earlier, you have to start being curious. How
Yeah.
can I help? What are the best ways? What things does he respond to more often? So that's how when we started to learn about more about, uh, DJ and autism in general, we recognized that like a lot of the change needed to happen from us, not from him, as parents or grandparents or anybody would have thought, oh, he'll grow out of it, or oh, whatever old stigma sentiment, whatever's, that's not true. And so we started to realize kind of right off the bat that we're not going to get a lot of support here, and we're going to have to have some hard, you know stops when it comes to family parties, when it comes to getting invited to restaurants, when it comes to things like this. And people were not very susceptible. They weren't like, they didn't like it, and
Shocker.
yeah, right,
Shocker.
right.
I
And
mean, so shocking.
it's
You
so
can
hard.
see
Yeah.
it on my face. I'm shocked.
You've been down that road a time or two, and it's so disappointing.
Yes.
And you're like, okay, well, and so you just realize that, and this bond that he and I have as partners, like luckily we have that, and we just said let's focus on each other and on our family and on our kids. And our oldest moved away, in high school, moved away with her mom to another state. And so we had that kind of extra time at to really focus on them and to put energy into the therapy and to, the communication and all of those things that would come. Um, and then when our daughter got her diagnosis, and like I said, I guess we had realized my husband, was on the spectrum in between both the kids' diagnoses. But when she got hers, we were already at a place where we were celebrating that we could better understand her, that we could better say, okay, wait a second. Now we can look at maybe some PDA profiles of autism, and we can understand maybe some of the outbursts or some of the other things that were happening that didn't happen with him, that we didn't have experience in, because everyone's different. And it gave us this whole new like goal to try to understand and help this other little person. Because ultimately, when it, now I've been a parent literally for 20 years, and I can say today my biggest like concern or worry or anything is my child's emotional well-being and intelligence over anything else. I mean, yeah, her safety, of course, that's like a given. But am I concerned that she's getting straight A's in a math class or an English class, or like doing great singing in a band or something? No. Like, that's great. She'll figure out what she loves to do and those things. What she needs is to know that she, number one, belongs here always. Always has a place where she belongs. Always has a place where she is never judged and she can always be herself. And that comes in all kinds of understanding and patience from us. And we want to offer that. We want to provide that for her. And that takes a lot of learning on our parts and how to navigate that, because it's the first time we've ever had a 12-year-old daughter with a PDA autism profile. And, that's something that I think that you just kind of learn as you go, trial by fire. But also the beauty of how now we can look at, the things that maybe the school system would say, oh, that doesn't fit in with us. And we say, well, this person is brilliant and totally skilled and absolutely talented, and you're missing out on not understanding how to get to know them. You're missing out because you don't know how to perceive them in the correct way. You can only perceive them in this like demeaning way. You can't look at strengths, you just look at their weaknesses all the time. And it's just so sad that it's that society. So in our family, I think that we developed a way to look at each other's strengths and to celebrate each other's strengths and to celebrate each other and our interests and everything. Like, you know, for Halloween, we're going as Sonic. My son loved Sonic, and we're each having our own Sonic character costume. We're full body, everything, family theme. We do
Wow.
everything like in this conjoined, beautiful little togetherness.
Wow, I have to stop the episode there because Sonic is one of my all-time favorite idols. Uh, I literally could talk about Sonic for 5 hours on a uh, podcast or video cats. Uh, and
Yay!
wow,
Here's my Amy Rose costume.
of course, you're Amy Rhodes. Uh, who who is your husband going to be?
He's gonna be Knuckles,
Okay,
and DJ will be Sonic, and
okay.
Anna will be Tails.
Beautiful. You
Yeah,
have to send me a
I
picture
will. I
of
promise. I will.
that will be my birthday present.
I love it.
Kids, no, I'm literally born the day before Halloween. Uh,
Ooh.
so yeah, so well, we could talk about Sonic and your family dynamic. Uh, for part 2, part 3, part 4, and part 5 if
Love it.
we wanted to do that. But in terms of the two questions I always ask at the end of every episode, you've worn so many different hats in your life in terms of jobs and vocations. In case there are any self advocates who want to get into being a talk show host about advocacy, or children's book author, but aren't sure where or how to begin, what would be some action steps, some advice you would give them?
I would say if you're wanting to do a podcast, here are your first 3 steps to take. Number 1, get yourself some social media pages going so you have a place to plant it when you're done. I think is a good point to make.
Yeah,
Get yourself some basic equipment because you don't need anything crazy or fancy. And number 3, do it. Get out there, do it, tell your story because your story is unique and different, and someone will learn something from it that will, help their lives be valued and add value. So I think it's important. And, I had a storyteller, I think he is a writer coach on my show once, and he said, whatever you don't give to the world is like shame on you. Like you should be giving them everything you have because nobody else has it. I love that.
yeah,
I
yeah.
love that.
So I like to think that both advocates with disabilities and those who have yet to discover or embrace their own disabilities listen and watch this program and groups within those groups. But I'm not naive enough to think that every group takes away the same things as other groups of episodes. So, as my guests, what do you hope that advocates with disabilities take away from this episode? And what do you hope that those who have yet to discover or embrace their own disabilities take away from this episode?
I love it. And I will end it with my S.J. Childs quote: a little bit of knowledge will turn fear into understanding. And how much does that help people? Like, go find out more information about all of the things that are you're dealing with. Your if you're an advocate and you are helping families, then do more research on what resources in your community so you can help those families. Do some, more research on maybe how to self-soothe some difficult stims that you might be going through. I think self-growth is one of the most important things, and it
I
comes
agree.
with self-acceptance.
Yeah,
And I don't think that I ever could have or would have said that about myself had I have not been through these incredible, like, you know, deep, complex, like vulnerable stages and conversations with people. So I love it. This has been just a fantastic conversation.
yes, and I hope it continues. So I hope that
Agreed.
that you are always welcome on this, what will now be known as a talk show.
Yes,
Thank
sir.
you. Uh, because that's what we do. This started as a interview show, but it quickly evolved into just talking to people. And
Yeah.
the first season, I knew a lot of the people, but from season 2 onward, I've branched out and mixed it up, and I've gotten to know some incredible people just through this medium. And so I want to thank you, Sara Bamford, for
Yeah.
coming on and for inviting me on to your talk show. Hopefully, we'll get that set up next year. Uh,
Perfect.
when people are
That's
listening
perfect.
to this, it will be next year. Uh, Years go by so quick.
Oh,
Uh,
so true.
but
So
I
true.
want to thank you for your candor and for your vulnerability and your
Thank
honesty. And
you.
I look forward to our continued conversations. Say hi to your family. I feel like I know them already. And have a wonderful
Thank
holiday. And I
you.
look forward to keeping in touch.
Me too. Thanks so
In
much. Take
case
care.
anyone wants to find out more about you or your show or read all of your books, how would they do that?
They can do the simplest thing by going to www.sjchilds.org.
Oh, yeah, non-profit. That's another thing we
Yeah.
have in common. I want to thank you again. This has been a delightful conversation, and I very much look forward to continuing it, my friend.
Take care.
Thank you. Take care of yourself.